And a very, very good evening to you all, and a very warm welcome to Camelot Castle, where life is unchanged and is still extremely positive, extremely uh, calm, I would say. This is the epicenter, really, of sanity for the UK and to some degree the rest of the world, because while the world has been going slightly loopy, I would say, and has been really been a little bit tricky, I would say. Um, Here at Camelot Castle, we have been getting on with it and really rather enjoying the various different. Now we're joined here by Marilyn Horner. Who else is tuning in from around the world? What I would ask each and every one of you to do is to share this broadcast on all the various different platforms. We've decided to increase our output from Camelot Castle TV. Steve Hayes is with us. That's very nice, Steve. Good evening to you. Looks like you're enjoying a pint in the pub there, and that is absolutely marvellous. Now, this week we had the most extraordinary time. We went up to London and we hosted a dinner party at the Carlton Club, and that was really rather fun. We were expecting Charlie Kirk to come over, but very sadly he had to join us by telephone because of what's gone on in the midterms in the United States, which is a bit of a shame. Sharon Gillibrand is joining us. Sharon, I'm very, very well indeed, and everybody here is well. It's all going very well. Bern MacDonald, where's he? From Flag Advanced Org. Do give for those of you that aren't Scientologists, Flag is the worldwide headquarters for parishioners, for people that use the Church of Scientology, and it's based in Florida, which is marvellous. There is Kate Fulford, who is an absolute star of Camelot Castle Tea, of course. Kate, lovely to hear from you. And it's just so lovely. Cornwall at this time of year is so much fun, and the hotel is nearly filled to the gunnels because we have all sorts of people coming, freedom fighters from all over the world. I'd be very, very interested to know what each of you make about cryptocurrency. Jacqueline Crouch, hi John, I'm joining you from Eastbourne. You know who lives in Eastbourne is my dear mother, lives in Eastbourne. Look, we're joined by Elizabeth Shahiki, who recently came to stay here. Lovely, lovely young lady. And she's joining us. Where are you from, Elizabeth? Are you back in Kazakhstan now? Anyway, the Camelot, we arrived home from London. We were up in London for 3 days. We had a fantastic dinner up there. It was only a small dinner for 10 people. But Nigel Farage came to dinner with Ava Van Dillingbroek. She'll forgive me because I can't. The name is a little tricky to pronounce it. Ava Var. You will know how to pronounce her name better than I. But she's a great friend of Tucker Carlson, and she is one of the stars of his show in the United States. And she is really one of the great campaigners against what the deep state is doing. She's been very outspoken about the farmers in Holland, and she's done a job with those farmers. As Elizabeth, you see, she says, I'm already missing Camelot. I very much enjoyed staying in magical Camelot Castle, and look at that. Well, what can one say? We miss you too, very much indeed. And so Claudia Byrne says, I'm against this digital, and we shall not forget what happened in Canada to the truckers. What happened there to the truckers in relation to crypto? Now, I'm particularly want to differentiate between central bank digital currencies and Bitcoin as a digital currency. I would very much like to know what you think about the pure digital currencies such as Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, because I have a theory that I'd like to share with you, and that is that because these are proper currencies, they're not fiat currencies. In other words, there's a limited amount of Bitcoin available in the world. I have a theory that despite the fact that they have been knocked, in the long run, they could prove to be great tools to help us achieve the freedom from the central bank. So I'm very, very interesting. Elizabeth says, I'm sitting in the airport now watching your Camelot live TV. Well, Elizabeth, it's as if you're here. What can I say? And that's the great thing about Camelot Castle TV. Now, look at this. Liberta ni Maholion. Wow, what a great name. Says, big protests in Dublin today in relation to migrants. Government trying to move them from another area of Ireland where they were causing trouble to a building in Dublin. Stephen says, if we go digital, then the elites will have full control how and what we spend it on. Is that true of Bitcoin? It's definitely true of central bank digital currencies. But is it true of Bitcoin? Kate Fulford says, not sure about Bitcoin, gold and silver, I would trust more. Darren Walker says, hello from Chesterfield in Derbyshire. Now, we're not going to do a long broadcast tonight. I just really wanted to open up the channel again and say hello. And I wanted to find out what questions you have, because clearly life is in a turmoil. I would like to help any of you out, feel that you have any questions. One of the things I always recommend, and I tend to recommend this every time I do a broadcast, but there is a book called Dianetics, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. It was written by L. Ron Hubbard. It was written in 1950, and he researched the contents of that book from 1938 up until 1950 when he released Dianetics. And this is the book, when you read this book, it resolves depression. And it's a very, very useful thing. And it's a very, very important piece of technology to understand in these troubled times. So the first thing that I always suggest that people do is actually do read Dianetics. Now, Claudia is giving me a little bit more information here. Truckers, the Ontario Provincial Police and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police ordered all regulated financial firms to cease facilitating any transactions from 34 crypto wallets tied to funding trucker-led protests in the country. Well, that's interesting, but would that prevent somebody with Bitcoin transferring it to somebody else with Bitcoin through a wallet? I don't think it would. Sharon says, I'm sure Bitcoin is losing its value. Okay, that's interesting. It's definitely taken a hit recently. Justin Sutton says, hello from Michigan. How will the UK preserve their heritage when it is under assault by the people in charge? We face this problem all over the world. It seems like a devious plan to cause chaos worldwide. Justin, I don't disagree with you. And the way that we're going to do this is that we are going to keep communicating amongst ourselves. We're going to create little groups. We have a group actually on WhatsApp, which if any of you are interested in joining it, you'd be more than welcome to. But it's a sort of an intelligence group. And there's a fellow in that group called Steve Ferry, who's a very, very bright man. He says the only way we will win over the globalist tyranny is by all those not consenting to join forces worldwide under the banner of ending the influence of the one common enemy we all share, demanding the separation of the entire globalist machine from all governments. If we keep fighting in our own smaller spheres, by cause or by location, we will continue to remain parochial, smaller in influence than the many-headed hydra, and so to go down protesting. We do not need a single leader, but multiple leaders, all deciding to pursue this takedown of the sources of the problems, all with the same goal, pooling financial personnel and their skill sets, and all other resources. I thought that was very positive. Claudia has said, how can we join the group on WhatsApp? If you send me a private message with your WhatsApp number, either on Twitter, yes, if you send me a private message on Twitter with your WhatsApp number, then I will add you to the group. Claudia. You've been a great supporter of what we're trying to do here. Marilyn Horner says, yes, it's very controlled here in Canada. My friend was denied entry into New York from Niagara Falls due to not being vaccinated. Wow, isn't that a disgraceful situation? Kate Fulford says, I would love to read this, as he, I think that's referring to L. Ron Hubbard, seems to know a lot about addiction and depression. Big Pharma are the big deep state criminals. Yes, there's no question that L. Ron Hubbard, this is in reference to the book Dianetics, was the first person to really isolate how the mind works and to demonstrate the actual root cause of depression. And many of you ask me very often, I get asked, John, how is it that you're so cheerful? And what is it that causes you to remain aloof from the fray? Or not aloof, but just rise above it slightly. And we get asked that question somehow. And the answer to that question is in truth the fact that I have studied Scientology and I studied Dianetics and actually have been a recipient of what is called Dianetics auditing, or it's a form of therapy that you actually do. It's very, very pleasant to receive, great fun actually, you will laugh a lot. But that has been a great bonus. Yvonne Taylor says, good evening. Good. So Sharon says, we need to get out of the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization because it's them that's running the show. Sharon, you're absolutely right. And this is the point that Steve Ferry made today, and I think he's absolutely right to have made that point. All sorts of things going on in England today. We had a situation where it looks as if the government is planning to renegotiate our Brexit position with Brussels. I'd be interested out there, if you voted for Brexit, do you feel more strongly about it? If you didn't vote for Brexit, do you feel more strongly about it? Where do you sit today? Do you feel that we should join Europe again, or do you feel that we should still be maintain our Brexit position? Steve Hayes says, they're dividing us on many fronts. People must have common ground and be united. This is so true. This is so true. And I think one of the things that we can do at Camelot, one of the things that we do so well here, is unite people on the subject of friendship. Chris Ram, golly, I like your logo. That looks like it is a ram. The elites, or whatever you call them, seem to have an attitude that we, the common man, are owned by them, and not that they are servants of those that pay their way. Well, this is exactly the point that Ava van Dillebroek made. She basically said that the governments in Europe believe now, and I think this is true of the British government, is that the people exist to serve the government. And this, of course, is the demarcation point between a sane government and an insane government. A sane government knows that the government exists to serve the people, but an insane government believes that the people exist to serve the government in some way, and that is the beginning of tyranny when that concept is lost. It's so important. Kate is just saying something. The UK is too ingrained in the system. We are like head office Illuminati, sadly. It does feel like that some way, Kate. It does feel like that. But I can assure you that we are making considerable headway. Chris Ram says, Brexit is more important now than ever. It needs to be done and fully done. I predicted that the EU army had only one target after subjugation of the peoples of the EU countries, and that was war with Russia. Well, you're not wrong, and some of you know our position in relation to the Ukraine and in relation to Russia. If you take a look at my Twitter feed today, it's very clear. The facts and the truth of the matter has not been presented to the British public in relation to Russia. It is the Ukrainians and the Russians are essentially like brothers, cousins certainly, and they have been persuaded to enter into a civil war, really. And the group of people that has persuaded them to do that, sadly, is NATO and the British. I'm afraid our country is guilty of funding extremist nationalists and Nazi units. And these Nazi units have been committing genocide. So for those of us that are paying money to our government, which of course we all are in our taxes, our government has then taken that money and has given that money to people who are really extremists. And those people have been committing ghastly atrocities in terms of genociding their own people. This has been going on for about 8 years. This isn't something that started in the last year. And sadly, the consequences of this are not going to be good. Now, many of you know that my wife and I we visited Kazakhstan twice in the last month. And what's interesting there is that the opinion there of even ordinary people, these people are very, very well informed as to what is really going on. And they understand what it is that President Putin is doing and what the Russian Federation are doing and why they're doing it. And you get a completely different perspective when you actually visit the local CIS countries and you see what's going on. Unfortunately, here our media is so biased. But I'd be interested to know from our followers, what do you... Oh, Elizabeth says, John Mappin, I am following and subscribe to your YouTube channel too. Oh, that's great. And I would appreciate it if you would all share this channel and subscribe to these channels. Torben Markusen, hello from Denmark, Copenhagen. What do you all feel about the Ukrainian situation? I'd be most interested to know what you feel of the military operation over there, and do you feel that we as a country should be sending our money over there? If you're American, do you think Americans should be funding this and sending weaponry over there? Darren Walker says, lockdowns that did more harm than good destroyed our economy, not Brexit. Well, of course that's correct. Kate says, the Russians are in to save a lot of worldwide problems. If the world knew what was really going on in the Ukraine, they would not support the puppet government there. Well, Kate usually is pretty well informed, and I have to agree with you, Kate. Nigel Anthony Gray, hello from New Zealand. Ukraine should not be funded. Well, that's our view, and it seems it's your view too, Nigel. Very nice to hear from you, Nigel. Do please share this broadcast everywhere. I think it's important that we start to communicate a little bit more actively on the subject of the Ukraine. I think people, the other day, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a missile fired into Poland. And immediately half of Twitter said, oh, this is a Russian missile. And then thankfully, a few hours later, it came out that actually this had been a Ukrainian missile. And of course, the Ukrainians were claiming that it was a Russian missile, but of course it was of Ukrainian manufacture. And, this is very, very irresponsible because, oh, look, Nigel has said he shared this broadcast. That's very, very helpful. Don't underestimate just how far these communications reach. They go a very long way. You'd be amazed as to who actually sits down and listens to them. And ideas, not battles, really form the future. Marilyn Horner says, Canadians should not be spending any money on Ukraine. Investment is into human trafficking, organ harvesting, biolabs. Well, I've heard that. I don't know if it's true because I've not seen it, but I definitely have seen a lot of money being spent on weaponry, and I've definitely seen that weaponry is unnecessarily being used to slaughter brothers and sisters and family members on both sides of the conflict. And, there's a very, very useful piece of information. I often talk about it because it's so powerful. It's called the third party law. And maybe if there are anyone who could put a link in the comments to the third-party law. It's worth reviewing. Sharon Gillibrand says it's an epicenter for money laundering, trafficking by the elites, and ran by Nazi Ukrainians who are killing their own. Putin went in to clear the swamp there as well as the bioweapons. Sharon, you seem to be remarkably well informed. Kate Fulford says this is what President Putin is there to stop. Kate, I don't think you're wrong. Now listen, I've never said that any leader is perfect. I'm sure President Putin has his flaws. Not perfect, none of us are. Oh, thank you very much, Chris. This is the link for the third-party law, and this is actually, if you click on this link here, you can actually watch an explanation of the third-party law. It's a very, very useful thing. Nigel, thank you very much. That's another link there to the third-party law. It's a very simple law. It basically states that if two people were getting on originally, which of course Ukrainians and Russians have gone on for years, if they stop getting on and it stops repairing, there's always a hidden third party. Always a hidden third party. And this situation, this conflict is no different. And it will surrender to the third party law, and if people apply it. In fact, if you were ever upset about a war and you wanted to do something that could, start taking things in the right direction, one of the first things that you would do is distribute as many copies of the third-party law to as many people in the area as you possibly could. So if you do know somebody in the Ukraine, or if you know somebody in Russia, the thing to do would be to send them this link here that Nigel Anthony Gray has so kindly put up. But I'm interested to know your opinion. Should we all be speaking out about what is going on in Ukraine, or is it too dangerous to do so? My view is it's too dangerous not to do so, and so I've been very outspoken on it. I have been criticised. It's not the first time I've been criticised for speaking out on this or that. I was rather upset that Elon Musk today has put this poll up as to whether or not Trump should be reinstated back on Twitter. So I wrote a long thread, which you can find on my Twitter, and I'd appreciate it if you retweeted it. But you'll find it on my Twitter account. And the tweet simply says this. It says, sorry to ask this, as I know he's done some good things in his brief tenure of Twitter, but why on earth would Elon Musk conduct a poll about whether or not President Trump should be allowed back on Twitter? To me, this is a point of principle and goes to the heart of freedom. Freedom of speech is a sacred point of principle. It is enshrined in the foundation of our culture. It is certainly not and never must be a popularity contest. Such actions reduce our culture down to a homogenization of mediocrity. Personally, I feel that even if President Trump were to be allowed back onto Twitter, he might be more wise to decline. Group agreement has never gotten anything worthwhile done on this planet, and the injection of freedom the president granted to America during his tenure at the White House was more valuable than any social media acquisition. The power of sound intellectual philosophy and the application of Trump's extraordinary IQ to global problems and the fundamental principles of leadership were priceless. And as we move into the future, the intelligent will recognize just how priceless such a man of principle is. Certain principles lie above democracy. They must do. Certain principles lie above democracy. They must do, as they are both its source point and its foundation. Free speech is one of them, and no amount of showboating for the masses will alter that. Other than the fact of the poll itself, an alarming thing is the vast percentage of the people that clearly believe that freedom of speech should be denied to a man who's been the leader of the so-called free world. This demonstrates once again why the founders of the USA enshrined certain sacred principles, so that the mob in its collective insanity is somewhat restrained. Interesting times. Our own view is that overall, Elon Musk is doing more good than harm, although he is completely out to lunch on Neuralink. Someone needs to inform him as to where human memory and the human mind is actually stored. Hint, it has nothing to do with brain tissue. But Elon Musk is a trier, and God loves a trier, so we wish him much luck. But please note the above observations and points. And I would certainly recommend Dianetics for Elon Musk, because he really is convinced that somehow memory is stored in the brain, which is actually a complete fallacy. It's not. Your memory is stored in a field. It's stored in the mind, which is a field that surrounds you and which you have both created and which you have access to. So in a way, your memories are already uploaded to a cloud, but it's a cloud of your own manufacture, and certainly doesn't need any Neuralinks to do so. If somebody could just cut that little clip and make a little clip out of that last statement, that would be most helpful. Now, Kate Fulford has said the Russians are in to save a lot of trouble, worldwide problems. If the world knew what was really going on in the Ukraine, they would not support the puppet government there. Wow. Good. I think we've seen these comments before. Now, let me just see. Nigel Anthony Gray says, I think it is our responsibility when we observe injustice to make it known. Sometimes this can be a very rough journey and does not make one popular. However, there is a level above all this where we can bring society to if we persist. Nigel, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thomas Mitchell says the US put the Ukrainian president there to destabilize Russia and increase the turmoil that the elites plan to handle with totalitarianism. Wow, isn't it interesting, how informed people really are on this channel? The West are promoting the Ukraine war to help in their plans to cause disruptions across the Western world. They are slowly but surely destroying the lives of all but a few at the top with false drive using net zero and climate change. 100%. That's why they're giving Putin a bad name, because he's doing the complete opposite as to what the MSM and governments and presidents are saying to make him look bad. Wow. So you see, my point is, I've just done a gentle survey here. We're not doing a huge broadcast this evening. We're just having a little chat with friends. Somebody says here, shame they cut President Trump's speech short last night. I think I saw most of it. Chris Ram says, 2014 was a bad year for the Ukraine and the world, but not the first notable date in the country's betrayal. Sharon says, I read a president has already been prosecuted for crimes against humanity, but I can't remember which country. Well, I don't know about that, Sharon. Maybe you can find out. Anyway, it is interesting. It is interesting that even here on this little humble Camelot Castle TV, which does happen to reach many of the opinion formers of the world, people seem to understand what is going on in the Ukraine. And our position is that I think we should all start to communicate about it a little bit more, where you can, inform people. Use social media. I know to some degree it is censored and restricted, but to some degree it's a good idea to communicate. It feels frustrating sometimes when one's words of wisdom are ignored, but that's not a reason to not communicate. We should each of us communicate, and it's all rather exciting. My dear son has taken up a different form of communication. Some of you know, Caspian, I made, I think, probably what I will regret as a mistake. I bought, dear Caspian, an electric guitar, and he's been rather enjoying that. and I will show you his first performance of the
I'll have to get someone here. What?
I don't know. I think that could have been what one calls non-strategic purchase, but that is Caspian on his first electric guitar, and he's thoroughly enjoying it. He was so excited. I took him up to Denmark Street, where I recorded my first music album many years ago, and went to the guitar shop, and he's doing very well with that, and he's thoroughly enjoying it. But I thought I'd just leave you with that. Let's keep in touch. Please do whatever you can to share this message, and I would really appreciate it if you could use your voice. Camelot Castle is a place where you can come, you can spend a little bit of time, you can reconnect yourself, you can feel that you are surrounded by normal, staff members who are very, very friendly, and we look forward to welcoming you all soon. Do always let me know, by the way, if you're an observer of Camelot Castle TV and you're coming to Camelot, do always let reception know, and we always like to say hello and spend a little bit of time with our media friends. But thank you so much, and I will leave you with the closing sequence.